Okay. Right. Hare Krishna, welcome back. So we've discussed all these verses thus far, right? 46 to 50. Does anybody want to add anything, have any questions, share some light before we start the next set? Anyone?
Hare
No?
Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna, yes.
I particularly like this verse where the Lord reveals himself, because in many pictures you always see the Lord with this effulgence, like in a calendar, or it's like a popular picture where you see the Lord revealing his true form. And I was just
Yeah.
thinking about that mantra in Sri Ishopanishad, where the Lord has this dazzling covering, and if a devotee requests the Lord lovingly to remove that effulgence and that cover so that we can see him, and the Lord kindly obliges. So it was just like really sweet to see this come true. Hare
Yeah, thank
Krishna.
you for that share. Thank you so much. Yeah, so what's the underlying thing? Bottom line is that you've got to be a devotee, a good devotee like Arjuna, right? And then the Lord, if he likes, he will reveal. Anybody else? Okay. Right, we're starting from verse number 51. Arjuna starts speaking again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Trisvedam manusham rupam tava saumyam janardana idhanam asmi samvrittah sachetah prakritim gatah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, "O Janardana, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind, and I am restored to my original nature." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here the words Manushyam Rupam clearly indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be originally two-headed. Those who deride Krishna as if he were an ordinary person are shown here to be ignorant of his divine nature. If Krishna is like an ordinary human being, then how is it possible for him to show the universal form and again show his four-handed Narayan form? So, it is very clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that one should think that one who thinks that Krishna is an ordinary person and who misguides the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna speaking is doing the greatest injustice. Krishna has actually shown his universal form and four-handed Vishnu form. So, how can he be an ordinary human being? A pure devotee is not confused by misguiding commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he knows what is what. The original verses of Bhagavad Gita are as clear as the sun. They do not require lamplight from foolish commentators. So nicely rounded up by Prabhupada. Okay, 1152, Shalina Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Sudhurdarsham idham rupam drishtavam asiyan mama deva api asya rupasya nitam dharshana kanshina neha veda na tap kanshinaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, this form of mine you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form, which is so dear." Purport: in the 48th verse of this chapter, Lord Krishna concluded sorry. In the 48th verse of this chapter, Lord Krishna concluded revealing his universal form and informed Arjuna that this form is not possible to be seen by so many pious activities, sacrifices, etc. Now, here the word Sudhurdarsham is used, indicating that Krishna's two-handed form is still more confidential. One may be able to see the universal form of Krishna by adding a little tinge of devotional service to various activities like penances, Vedic study, and philosophical speculation. It may be possible, but without a tinge of bhakti, one cannot see. That has already been explained. Still, beyond that universal form, the form of Krishna with two hands is still more difficult to see, even for demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva. They desire to see him, and we have evidence in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when he was supposed to be in the womb of his mother, Devaki, all the demigods from heaven came to see the marvel of Krishna, and they offered nice prayers to the Lord. Although he was not at that time visible to them, they waited to see him. A foolish person may deride him, thinking him an ordinary person, and may offer respect not to him, but to the impersonal something within him. But these are all nonsensical postures. Krishna, in his two-armed form, is exactly desired to be seen by demigods like Brahma and Shiva. Mata, somebody else can have a turn to read.
Okay. Uh-huh. Who wants to read next? Dean Prabhu? In Bhagavad Gita 9:11.
Okay. In Bhagavad Gita 9:11, it is also confirmed. Havijanana ma madhu musyam tanam ashritam. I don't know if I said that correctly. He is not visible. He is not visible to the foolish person who deride him. Krishna's body, as confirmed by Brahma Samhita and confirmed by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, is completely spiritual and full of bliss and eternity. His body is never like a material body, but for some who make a study of Krishna by reading Bhagavad Gita or similar Vedic scriptures, Krishna is a problem. For one using a material process, Krishna is considered to be a great historical personality and very learned philosopher. But he is an ordinary man, and even though he was so powerful, he had to accept a material body. Ultimately, they think that the absolute truth is impersonal. Therefore, they think that from his impersonal feature, he assumed a personal feature attached to the material nature. This is the materialistic calculation of the Supreme Lord. Another calculation is speculative. Those who are in search of knowledge to speculate on Krishna and consider him to be less important than the universal form of the Supreme. Thus, some think that the universal form of Krishna, which was manifested to Arjuna, is more important than his personal form. According to them, the personal form of the Supreme is something imaginary. They believe that in the ultimate issue, the absolute truth is not a person, but the transcendental process is described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4. To hear about Krishna from authorities, that is the actual Vedic process. And those who are actually in the Vedic line hear about Krishna from authority. And by repeated hearing about him, Krishna becomes dear. As we have several times discussed, Krishna is covered by his yogi Maya potency. He is not to be seen or revealed to anyone and everyone. Only by one to whom he reveals himself can he be seen. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. For one who is a surrendered soul, the absolute truth can actually be understood. The transcendentalists, by continuous Krishna consciousness and by devotional service to Krishna, can have his spiritual eyes open and can see Krishna by revelation. Such a revelation is not possible even for the demigods. Therefore, it is difficult even for demigods to understand Krishna. And the advanced demigods are always in hope of seeing Krishna in his two-handed form. The conclusion is that although to see the universal form of Krishna is very, very difficult, not possible for anyone and everyone, it is still more difficult to understand his personal form in the Sama Sundara. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare
Madhurita
Krishna.
Mataji, 53.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Naham Vedayirna Tapasa, Nadanana Nachajyaya, Shakyayavam Vido Darshtum, Drishtavam Asimam Yatham. Translation: the form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna first appeared before his parents Devaki and Vasudev in a four-handed form, and then he transformed himself into the two-handed form. This mystery is very difficult to understand for those who are atheists or who are devoid of devotional service. For scholars who are simply studied Vedic literature by way of grammatical knowledge or more academic qualifications, Krishna is not possible to understand. Nor is he to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Krishna can be understood only through the path of devotional service, as explained by Krishna himself in the next verse. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, 54. Ranika Mataji.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
chapter 11, verse 54.
54.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhakti-atve ananya sakyaham evam vido rujuna. Janatum trastum cha tatvena pravishtum cha parantapam. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He is explicitly explained this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita by the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand that Krishna or he came or understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once changed himself into a two-handed Narayan form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understanding of those matters. Those who, however, are very experienced students of Vedic literature can learn about him from the Vedic literature in so many ways. There are so many rules and regulations, and if one at all wants to understand Krishna, he must follow the regulative principles described in the authoritative literature. One can perform penance in accordance with those principles. For example, to undergo serious penance, one may observe fasting on Janamastami, the day on which Krishna appeared, and on the other 2 days of Ekadashi, the 11th day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. As far as charity is concerned, it is plain that charity should be given to the devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his devotional service to spread the Krishna philosophy or Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Lord Chaitanya was appreciated by Rupa Goswami as the most munificent man of charity because of love of Krishna, which is very difficult to achieve, and who distributed freely and was distributed freely by him. So if one gives some amount of his money to persons involved in distributing Krishna consciousness, that charity given to spread Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity in the world. And if one worships as prescribed in the temples in India, there's also some statue, usually of Vishnu or Krishna. That is a chance to progress by offering the worship and respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the beginners in devotional service to the Lord, temple worship is essential, and this is confirmed in the Vedic literature, Sevashvatara Upanishad 6:23.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Veronica Mataji. We'll get another reader now.
Thank you.
Shalina Mataji, read from here. One who has unflinching.
Hare Krishna. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the Supreme Master, in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revelation. One cannot understand Krishna by mental speculation. For one who does not take personal training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, it is impossible to even begin to understand Krishna. The word tu is specifically used here to indicate that no other process can be used, can be recommended, or can be successful in understanding Krishna. The personal forms of Krishna, the two-handed form and the four-handed, are described as Sudharamsha. Mata, say the word, please.
Oh, sorry, where, Mataji?
Second paragraph, second line. Sudhardarsham. Sudurdarsham. Very
Yeah.
difficult to see. They are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna. The four-handed form of Narayan and the two-handed form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form exhibited to Arjuna is temporary. The words Tvat Anyena na Drishta Purvam state that before Arjuna, no one had seen that universal form. Also, they suggest that amongst the devotees there was no necessity of showing it. That form was exhibited by Krishna at the request of Arjuna so that in the future, when one represents himself as an incarnation of God, people can ask him to see his universal form. The word na, used repetitively in the previous verse, indicates that one should not be very much proud of such credentials as an academic education, such as an academic education in Vedic literature. One must take to the devotional service of Krishna. Only then can one attempt to write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. Must I continue, Mata?
1 second, Mataji. Okay, we can get Kadruta Mataji to read from here. Krishna changes from.
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
changes from.
Lord changes from the universal form to the four-handed form of Narayana, and then to his own natural form of two hands. This indicates that the four-handed forms and other forms mentioned in the Vedic literature are all emanations of the original two-handed Krishna. He is the origin of all emanations. Krishna is distinct even for these forms. What to speak of the impersonal conception? As far as the four-handed forms of Krishna are concerned, it is stated clearly that even the most identical four-handed form of Krishna, which is known as Mahavishnu, who is lying on the cosmic ocean and from whose embracing so many innumerable universes are passing out and entering, is also an expansion of the Supreme Lord, as stated in Brahma Samhita 548. Yasayika Nashvaisita Kalam Advalambaya Jivanti Loma Vilajaja Jagat Anda Nataham Vishnur Mahan Saiha Yasya Kala Visheshom Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Amaham Bhajami. The Mahavishnu, into whom all the innumerable universes enter and from whom they come forth again simply by his bracing process, is a plenary extension of Krishna. Therefore, I worship Govinda, Krishna, the cause of all causes. Therefore, one should conclusively worship the personal form of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has eternal bliss and knowledge. He is the source of all forms of Vishnu. He is the source of all forms of incarnation, and he is the original Supreme Personality as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. In the Vedic literature, Gopalata Upanishad 1.1, the following statement appears. Sachichananda Rupaya Krishnaya Krishna Karine Namo Vedanta Vedyaya Gurave Buddhi Sakshine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Krishna, who has the transcendental form of bliss, eternity, and knowledge. I offer my respect to him because understanding him means understanding the Vedas, and he is therefore the supreme spiritual master. Then it is said, Krishna Vai Paramam Daivatam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gopala Tapani Upanishad 1.3. Ekhovasi Sarvaga Krishna Idyaha. That one Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he is worshipable. Ekopi San Bahuda Yovabati. Krishna is one, but he is manifested in unlimited forms and expanded incarnation. Gopala Tapani Upanishad 1.21. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 says, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarma Karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, who has a body of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He has no beginning, for he is the beginning of everything. He is the cause of all causes. Elsewhere it is said, Yatra Vatirnam Krishna Krishnakyam Param Brahma Narakriti. The Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. His name is Krishna, and he sometimes descends on this earth. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the description of all kinds of incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this list the name of Krishna also appears. But then it is said that this Krishna is not an incarnation of God, but is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Etecham Sha Halapumsa Krishna to Bhagavan Svayam. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Mataha Parataram Nanyat. There is nothing superior to me from as the personality of Godhead Krishna. He also said elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Ahamadir Hidevanam. I am the original of all the demigods. And after understanding Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, Arjuna also confirms this in the following words. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. I now fully understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, and that you are the refuge of everything. Therefore, the universal form which Krishna showed to Arjuna is not the original form of God. The original is the Krishna form. The universal form with its thousands and thousands of heads and hands is manifest just to draw the attention of those who have no love of God. It is not God's original form. The universal form is not attractive for pure devotees who are in love with the Lord. in different transcendental relationships. The Supreme Godhead exchanges transcendental love in his original form of Krishna. Therefore, to Arjuna, who was so intimately related with Krishna in friendship, this form of the universal manifestation was not pleasing, rather, it was fearful. Arjuna, who was a constant companion of Krishna's, must have had transcendental eyes. He was not an ordinary man. Therefore, he was not captivated by the universal form. This form may seem wonderful to persons who are involved in elevating themselves by fruitive activities, but to persons who are engaged in devotional service, the two-handed form of Krishna is the most dear. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I see the latter part of the purport I did not paste. Huh? Sorry about that. Oh, I did. Sorry, I just didn't change my screen. Okay, sorry. Right, okay. We got like 10 minutes left. We'll discuss what we read. I don't know if we'll be able to do the last verse today. Okay, so now, Manushyam Rupam. Srila Prabhupada states that Manushyam Rupam means, the form Rupa means form, Manushyam means man or human, and Prabhupada refers to this, these words, and he clearly states here that this indicates that Krishna's original form is like that of a man. And this form of Krishna is known as Shyam Sundar. That's his original form. You know, Krishna with the flute, two-handed form. Right? And Prabhupada also went and he used a nice analogy here. He said that the original verses of Bhagavad Gita is very, very clear. It's as clear as the sun. Remember the one set of purport, he rounded it up so well. He said, the original verses of Bhagavad Gita is as clear as the sun. They do not require lamplight from foolish commentators. So he's comparing to all these foolish commentators who add in their own thought process into what Krishna has said. They would then take Krishna's verses and input their own version of what they think Krishna has said. And that kind of commentary is so dull that is compared to a lamplight against the beautiful radiant sun. So Prabhupada says those who are not qualified in devotional service, who are not under the guidance of a spiritual master, in other words, those who are not devotees should not attempt to write commentaries of the Bhagavad Gita. Now that other word that we came across, Sudurdarshan. Su means beautiful. Dur means far or distant. Darshan means form, right? And why Darshan? Because Krishna is saying Darshan because it's so difficult to obtain. This beautiful two-armed form of Krishna's original form is so difficult to be seen. That's why Dur means like difficult in this context, right? So demigods, you know, I said we'll come back to this point and discuss how demigods also like to see this form of Krishna. They desire so much to see, so much so that when Mother Devaki was in prison, in the prison house, Vasudeva and Devaki, you all know that pastime, right? Where the cruel king Kans was killing all Devaki's children. And because he was afraid of the prophecy that Devaki's 8th son would be will kill him. So whilst in that prison house now, Devaki, Krishna was supposedly in Devaki's womb, right? All the demigods appeared there in the jail. You'll see beautiful paintings. You'll see nice paintings of that. If you read the Krishna book too, you'll see paintings. All the demigods were in that prison cell, and they were offering prayer to Krishna with the desire to see him. So it's difficult for even them to see Krishna. And I can direct you all to another pastime. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a nice pastime of where Lord Shiva was desiring to see Krishna. When Krishna appeared on this earthly planet and he was taken to the house of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, then Lord Shiva, being his pure devotee, wanted to see him. So what does Lord Shiva do? He disguised himself as a yogi. A yogi is a sage. He disguised himself as a yogi, a sage, and he went to the house of Nanda Maharaj. Now, he goes and knocks at the door. And Mother Yashoda opens, and what does she see? Oh, she sees this personality standing there. He's got dust and ash on his body. He's got snakes around his head. And his hair is up in a jata. Jata is like a bun, a big matted hair. And Krishna is crying. So he said to Mother Yashoda, I desire to see your son. I desire to see your newborn child. And Mother Yashoda was afraid, and she refused to allow him to see Krishna. Out of a protective love as a mother, he didn't want him to let him in the house. So what does Krishna do? Krishna recognized that his devotee came to see him and he wanted to give him his darshan. So Krishna began to cry. Baby Krishna began to cry. He cried so much that nobody could pacify him. And he went on and on and on. No matter what they did, Krishna wouldn't stop crying. So then one of the maidservants said to Mother Yashoda, you turned this person away, this Babaji away. Perhaps he can come and help pacify the baby. Why don't we call him back? So someone went out and called Lord Shiva back. And when Lord Shiva came, Krishna stopped crying. He held Krishna and Krishna stopped crying. And every time Lord Shiva left, Krishna would cry again. And then he would have to come back. Eventually, Nanda Maharaj said to Lord Shiva that, I don't want you to leave. I think you have to stay in the courtyard of our palace, just so that my child is pacified and happy and does not cry any further. So this is just a loving exchange between the Lord and his devotee. And even now, if you go to Vrindavan, if you go to the palace, place where the palace was, you will see, it's a temple now, you will see in the courtyard of that palace, there's a little temple of Shiva with a Shiv Linga there. And that temple is there because of this pastime, that Nanda Maharaj gave Lord Shiva a place to stay in his courtyard so that he can come and see Krishna whenever he wanted to. So the point here is that it is very difficult. You've got to be a good, pure devotee to see the Lord. And he only reveals himself if he wants to, dependent on your desire and intensity of love and devotion towards him. Right. Then there's another nice extract here from the purport. Prabhupada made reference to Avajananti Bam Muda Manushim Tanum Ashritam. It means he is not visible to the foolish persons who deride him. Who? Krishna. This does not make himself visible to non-devotees, basically, right? So, non-devotees, right? They are generally envious of Krishna and they will never understand his supreme position. So we should also, in line with this, be careful not to preach to envious people. We should not be preaching the glories of God to a non-devotee, because in doing so, we will be causing an offense to the ninth. It's a ninth offense to the holy name. We've got offenses against chanting the holy name. We have to be very careful and abide by all these rules. And the ninth offense is preaching the holy name to a faithless person. Right? So Krishna also states in chapter 11, verse number 53, that scriptural studies, academic qualifications, and officially going to temple to worship, all of these activities, if there is no devotion involved, then such a person will not understand. But of course, if one is situated in devotion to the Lord, he's engaged in devotional service, and he has these qualifications in scriptural studies, he may know to read and understand scripture properly. And if he goes to the temple and worships, as long as he has devotion in his heart, then this is okay. But not that you will have all this knowledge and you will go to temple for a ritualistic purpose and not have devotion in your heart. That is not good. Okay, so such a person won't understand. Right, then 1154, Krishna also clearly stated that one should understand him simply by, one may not understand him by speculative process. Can't be speculative and expect to understand Krishna. So, what does Prabhupada guide us here? He says to us that there are rules and regulations to understand Krishna. And he gave us some examples. Prabhupada said, for example, fasting on Janmashtami, which is coming up soon, 26th of August. Fasting on Janmashtami, fasting on Ekadasi that comes twice a month. Following the 4 regulative principles, giving charity. And even when you give charity, he says, give charities to a befitting person. And we will read more about that later in the later chapters in Bhagavad Gita. So give to befitting people, people who will utilize it in Krishna consciousness. So you give it to devotees. They will definitely put their charity into good use, right? And in this, on this note, Prabhupada also referred us to Lord Chaitanya. So who's Lord Chaitanya? Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. He appeared in Kali Yuga, in this present dark age, simply to deliver fallen souls. And he gave us the biggest charity. He gave us love of Godhead. He gave us the holy name. He gave us this mantra, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and told us to chant it. So, such charity is charity in even above the mode of goodness. It's transcendental charity, actually. Right? So, but also remember, Prabhupada also reminded us in the purports that in the Svetasvarta Puran, it is stated that it is very important for beginners to worship in the temple. Got to start by, even if the beginner may not have any devotion in his heart, by constantly going to the temple, he cleanses his heart. And then devotion will develop. Right, so in verse number 47, it's pointed out that no one saw the universal form before Arjuna. And as we discussed before, the purpose was so that future people will not claim to be God. They may ask to be reveal their universal form to prove it if they say they're God. So we must not be easily fooled, or we should not be fooled in any instant. Now, one may not be proud of his, also Prabhupada says, one may not be proud of his academic qualifications and in Vedic literature, all of that, if he is not properly situated in devotional service. And such a person is not qualified to write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he will mislead society. But you know, in this day and age, we get many people who use the word Pandit very loosely. Pandit mustn't be used loosely. Okay, we've got 1 minute left, devotees. If it's okay with y'all, I'd like to come back for another 10 minutes. Is that okay with y'all? Can I hear from you? So we can round up. Hare Krishna. Yes, no?
It's fine, Mataji. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Can we come
Yes,
back for just
Mata.
10 minutes? Okay,
Thank you.
Let's exit and come back, right? Thank you.